Welcome back, everyone. Now, it has been determined by league officials that the bug discovered in the TSM and RNG game does warrant disabling Aurelion Sol temporarily. I put extra emphasis on that word, temporarily. Now, since the games need to be remade with new picks and bans, the teams have been given time to strategize with this champion off the table. So, gentlemen, once again, I return to the conversation we were having before. With Aurelion Sol off the table for this game, how does this affect the pick bans moving into game 2?
I mean, if you're looking, if we would mimic the same draft and we get to the last rotation, there is potentially, like Papa Smithy was talking about, locking in the Azir for Jahul because he played that a lot. There's also what's considered very meta here is the Orianna actually coming back into that matchup because it's a really good matchup into Cassiopeia because you can just keep her at distance, and the looming threat of an Orianna ultimate is always able to counter that. I don't know if Jahul has practiced this champion, because otherwise he has to whip it out with very little playtime.
Well, the thing is, I don't think that the draft actually impacts the mid lane pick that much, because as you mentioned, there are a lot of replacements for the Aurelion Sol, and these teams are no strangers to Sol being banned. We saw this pick being a contested pick beforehand. Obviously, a lot of teams are prepared against it, with it, etc. But I think that it just really deters the strategy with Lee Sin. That's really the one that I kind of feel bad for RNG, because Lee Sin with that really strong early game jungler or mid laner like Aurelion Sol is not going to find that same success with the likes of an Orianna or with the likes of, say, a Vladimir in these matchups. That is kind of what I thought would be the game plan for them, and it just completely thrown out the window, and it might lead to them showing 2 strats in one game, which is not a good place to be in.
Right, that it would be unfortunate. Of course, having the ability to redo the picks and bans, they can change up that triple jungle ban strategy so that the jungle pool no longer gets pinched and open up their options for things outside of the Lee Sin jungle.
I mean, at the end of the day, RNG come in here looking for an ace up their sleeves. If you've played during normal metas, if you just follow TSM during the regular season, they're expected to win this game pretty comfortably in a standard game. But the ace here was ban 3 junglers. Happy to see the Nami taking the first pick, and the Lee Sin was certainly what they were going for. Although MLXG hasn't played that much, at least in this year, has always been a really big pick for him. So at the end of the day, I feel like that they're kind of going to have to really come up with something new. As Crumbs was saying, unfortunately, it has to be a new strategy, but it needs to be something out of the box, I think, to take the win over TSM.
Then, Krepo, let's put the focus back on the bottom lane, because we talked about the fact that you've got Uzi on one side, Doublelift on the other, and that, for RNG, a lot of their focus has been around the bot lane. Caitlyn, of course, was banned in the first game by TSM, but with the talk of this Nami maybe not pinching the jungle pool, is there a possibility that they can maybe leave up a higher priority first pick so that they can take the Nami in response, first rotation for RNG?
Yeah, Nami is definitely strong, but it kind of gets equaled out by the Karma. So I think if RNG wants to do this approach, they should actually just ban either the Nami or the Karma themselves. Say, hey, TSM, if you want this priority jungler, it's going to cost you a really solid range support. And that will elicit the reaction from TSM that they actually have to play a really passive bot lane, or maybe try and go for like a Bard to go equal, but that's very hard in a lot of matchups. So there's definitely a good mind game you can play, especially when there's distinct top 2 in terms of lane prowess, in terms of supports, being the Nami and the Karma, and the other lanes will have to adapt playing around that.
And I don't see TSM not banning Caitlyn, because that pick is just so powerful, and you know that RNG will have no issues in the first rotation because you get 2 picks out of that, whereas TSM doesn't want to be put in a position where their first pick is Caitlyn. You don't really get a whole lot of value for your team composition. Right from the start, you're giving away supports, junglers, too much that can influence that lane.
Now, do you have something you want to throw in there, Krepo?
It's the beauty of the standard lane meta right now, though, is that you have a lot of liberties in champ selects. It's no longer must bans anywhere. Yes, you could argue Elise is very strong, Nidalee is incredibly strong, so maybe those 2 picks are permaban status, but for the rest, like, you can mold and kind of sculpt your pick and ban phase very well together and create something that you like playing with.
All right, well, as we have seen on our screens here, the players have made their way back to the stage. They are prepared and ready to dive back into Champion Select. So one more time, we're going to throw it back to our casters in Jet, Quick Shot, and Spawn to get us in the game.
Welcome back, everybody. To reiterate what Dash said, it has been determined by league officials that the bug discovered in the TSM RNG game does warrant disabling Aurelion Sol temporarily. And, well, that's a bummer. I always like to see the big Star Dragon. But since the games need to be remade with new picks and bans, the teams have been given some time to strategize with the champion off the table. It's another ban. Had to see something different this time.
Yeah, it really is a shame for the RNG roster in particular that the Aurelion Sol is gone. I feel like that was one of their big strategies. You heard it on the analyst desk, completely out the window. And I feel for them in a situation like this. However, now they just have to start fresh, reset, and don't let that get to their mentality.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate because I actually feel like it'll sway bot lane a little because the way Aurelion Sol plays is by shoving the lane, pretty much having lane dominance for whenever he shoves in and the ability to just roam. And yeah, bot lane is a pretty good lane for Aurelion to roam to and be able to get any potential kills.
All right, well, we have new picks and bans. They're not enforced to be the same this time around, but they aren't all that different. The Caitlyn and, of course, the Jace on the other side. 3 jungle bans for RNG now. The Nidalee, the Elise, and the Rek'Sai all off the table. Looks like we're still possibly in for that Nami first pickup, but did TSM opt to take this Lee away now?
Yeah. It does look like they want to do this, and this immediately is an adaptation to the first draft. So once again, RNG
Yeah, I'm not sure if this
this
is directly because of this whole ban, but maybe they had second thoughts about the jungle matchup. Maybe they thought, yeah, the Skarner's not really what they were looking for, and they went for the steal instead.
All right.
This is really, I guess it's a delicate thing to watch unfold, but the Lee Sin is locked in, disregard it, saying that it's picking.
Yeah, the timer's a little messed up, but we do have lock-ins on the red side as well. Looper and MLSG both picking up the Rumble and Cassiopeia for Xapu.
The Cassiopeia as well, I think, was Bjergsen's champion at that stage, so things entirely different. You look towards the AD carries and supports once again to see if TSM go for a Nami and the Ezreal with that. They could afford to potentially do that in this draft, this phase of the draft, right?
Yeah, I'd definitely assume TSM would be looking for at least one of the bot lane picks here.
Yeah.
I'll see, still plenty of time on the clock, disregarding what it says, of course. And we actually have a Jhin locked in, so there were some changes, but it's still considered fairly strong, and it is one of those champions that Doublelift did play quite a bit of. Well, towards the end at least.
It's actually
In
really
the LCS summer.
a lot of different picks for this time around. I don't really know like the reasoning behind picking Jhin over Ezreal this time, so I mean maybe just Soul off the table means all these changes, but yeah, it looks like TSM had second thoughts about all the picks.
I think the reason that you go towards the Jhin now over the Ezreal is simply because you have the Lee Sin on your team. He's able to complement the engage, so Jhin with the W can lock them down. The ultimate can also be the engage tool, which pressures summoner spells, which then means it's easier for Svenskeren to follow that up and actually hit some kind of Lee Sin combo. The Ezreal is okay once you get items for doing that with utility, but before that stage, the Q doesn't slow, it doesn't really provide anything. So I think that's the reason they've gone for the Jhin.
I think for bot lane, it's mostly just about gank setup because Lee Sin as a champion really relies on having good lanes to gank.
Yeah.
And RNG locked themselves in the Hecarim with the jungle pool, so much of it canceled out by themselves. And how does this really affect that 2v2 with the final lock-ins on TSM side being the Orianna and the Kennen?
I mean, Xiaohu is one of the highest win rate Hecarims in the LPL. There aren't many high win rate Hecarims for what it's worth, but it also indicates to me that one of the very unique able to gank bottom champions as well with flanks is something that MLXG will like to do. I think it might actually be down there quite often, and we might see a lot of 3v3s, if not more.
All right. Well, did you take hazard a guess here at the last pickup? Well, I was about to say, and then I'm like, okay, no, he locks the Alistar.
The Thunder Cow.
So yeah, Thunder Cow, of course. I mean,
Yeah,
this
so
is
the dynamic of the lanes have changed a lot. So it went from probably a very trade, like bloodthirsty lane into maybe just a gank setup lane. They'll be looking to take minimal trades and actually just be looking to set up sort of ganks.
yeah.
Yeah.
You can already see the summoner spells. Obviously, still some time for that to change, but this is the time where Biofrost is going to go for the exhaust.
Yep, for sure.
Mata's still rocking that ignite. I guess if you can get the big combo off, you can all in it.
The only reason I say Thunder Cow is simply because Thunderlord's Decree is pointless if you don't have an ignite with it. You definitely would go for an exhaust and change your Keystone Mastery instead of having Thunderlords there, but knowing Mata, they will still have some kind of 2v2 aggression, and knowing Uzi, he wants that as well.
Yeah. You still get that speed boost off the Sivir ultimate, so once we hit level 6, things start to be a little bit dicey, but TSM's bottom lane, let's see if they can hold on. And they've got a pretty solid team fighting comp all the way around. If Doublelift can get protected, I mean, he can be a pretty big linchpin in this. The Curtain Call is still a very valuable ulti despite some of the changes.
I mean, there's a pretty big wombo that can come out of TSM's comp now with the Orianna Cannon, and Jin's purpose in this will be kind of to sit in the back and just be that unsung hero that either starts the fights off or finishes the fights off. So he'll either look like a god or will not look like he's doing anything.
Yeah. Well, of course, just like on the mainstream, guys, you can remember logging in and voting on Twitter, hashtag TSM win or RNG win. We'll see the results later on in the show. What do you think, Matt? Who takes this one based on the new comps?
For the teams, I mean, I've always been cheering on the NA team, so going for TSM. Comp-wise, I really favor RNG for their scaling. I'd say for TSM, they really have to be looking for the mid-game objective team fights, and if they aren't successful in winning those team fights, it'll be a very hard game for TSM to win.
I think it relies quite heavily on hitting item spikes for TSM. So Jin wants to get those big items, be quite useful with his armor penetration. Bjergsen also does need them, and until they hit that point, they might be using Haunter as a crutch to teleport to the 2v2 and influence that positively.
Yeah, I mean, you guys talked at length about the teleport usefulness or advantage usefulness for both the Kennen and, of course, on Looper's side for the Rumble. Not much change this time around in the top lane, but the rest of the map, of course, definitely different. It's RNG rove around together. Yeah,
that's
Lots
great.
having a good time.
I know the last time we saw an LPL team running a skin that beat them was Spirit, running the Fnatic skin after they got beaten by Fnatic, and it was a buff. They won the immediate game afterwards, and he hard carried.
Oh, there you go. Let's see if the trend continues. As I was going to say, Doublelift in this matchup here, like, he didn't play a lot of Jhin until the very end of summer, and it was mostly in the finals. He looked pretty solid on it, though, overall. Like, I wonder how much he's actually had practice on this one compared to a lot of other ADs. What do you think, Matt?
For Jhin, definitely the best of the 3 AD carries the last meta. Not too sure after the Jhin nerfs for this patch, but I'd say for... excuse me?
No, I'm just pointing out that they're going to be like potentially freezing the wave or cheesing the wave.
Oh, I mean, for level 1, this is actually the standard now. Most AD carries really value just the ability to... you see how they're stacking up the range minions and just killing the range minions? If they get them all low, the range minions will still continue to kill the melee creeps. Yeah. And because of the freeze, it actually ends up killing 2 melee creeps before they even enter lane. So a lot of the XP advantage that RNG got is mitigated by the freeze.
Yeah, Biofrost gives some of his health bar to make sure that stays that way. But all things start fairly even, and the rest of that, and he's able to heal most of that right back up. And the Nami sustain's really coming in handy. You can see why they valued this pick so much.
Do you think there is more value in a Jhin lane in particular and a Nami who's not too good at taking the Krugs, as you said last time around, doing exactly what we just saw from Doublelift and Biofrost?
Yeah, when you can assume that the enemy bot lane is going to do camp. So for Alistar always wants to do camp. That's the sort of advantage you get, is XP advantage for Alistar. But it's really forecasted, and the counterplay is there. You just freeze the lane, and the melee creeps will die before the enemy bot lane even gets to lane.
Yeah.
So what you want to be looking for in this lane for the AD carries is Doublelift wants to take really aggressive trades since he has a much bigger HP pool. Alistar's heal is not going to be that much for the Sivir, and Doublelift's Nami's heal, Nami healing will be much more impactful. So you can notice how RNG is holding the wave, held the wave initially on this side of the lane. The way the wave is going to stack up now, there's so many creeps. Yeah, there's 6 range creeps currently, and this is the timing where if Mata was looking to go aggressive, he would want to go aggressive because he has this many creeps. They just level 3. If he was more up to get a combo, then that would have been a very good trade.
I think best case scenario in that particular trade is actually the pole flash animation cancel as well, because you want to actually headbutt them into the minions. It's not just that you have the minion advantage and it's pushing, it's that they actually do a bulk of the damage to champions that help you get those kills, and they are the ignite lane.
Yep, the crucial thing in competitive play is how to use creep, just the creeps building up to your advantage. Taking trades around your creep advantage is how you win the trades.
Yeah, it looks like, just for a moment with Doublelift and Biofrost, they were able to really push back RNG and negate some of that advantage that they got from pushing up the wave a lot faster earlier, but you can see they've turned it right back around on RNG's side, and things pretty much just even out. It's first item, Longsword and Cole for the Sivir.
Yeah, I like the early backs, especially on the lanes that want to be setting up ganks. So when you back, it pretty much guarantees the lane's going to push back to you. And when the lane's back on your side, you have an item advantage. You gave your support time to roam. So getting back to lane, you'll have Vintage advantage. You know where the enemy jungler is, and it's much easier to start setting up ganks.
Yeah, and you know that by the time you get back to lane, because you've already pushed it in, it'll reset and be pushing back towards you, so you can collect that stack of minions. The only real cause for concern is, at this stage, you won't have a support.
Because he's up there headbutting Svenskeren.
Which was surprisingly clever. I don't know if you noticed, but he headbutted onto the worked ground, so there was no mobility. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's first blood, and you know, he helps secure it up, gives it over to MLXG.
Yeah, that all stems from the early recall that RNG's bot lane decided to do.
I think it's some pretty solid deep vision down there as well. I mean, look at, they've pretty much lit up every bit of the jungle
Well,
pathway.
3 pink wards and then
Yeah, that's actually ridiculous.
Yeah, just the amount of time it takes to actually kill the pink wards is pretty substantial. Like Lee Sin, if he was trying to kill all of those pink wards, that would be the same time as killing like a camp and a half maybe.
The amount of
Could be a
time
lot,
invested into that, yeah, it means that MLXG has free reign to do as he'd please. So that early recall, as we saw, very good start from RNG, honestly. I'm calling them China's hope.
Yet another recall from...
Still stinging from earlier?
Yep.
Yeah, well, you know how I feel. You 0-3 on the day. But I don't have any horse in this race. There you go. So they're going to clear out one of those wards. Biofrost invests in a pink of his own, but they really haven't seen the rest of them throughout the rest of this jungle. What is RNG going to do with this vision, though? Like, is it all to like basically keep Svenskeren down and kind of negate the early Lee Sin advantages?
When you have vision of one half the jungle, then it pretty much guarantees where the enemy jungler is looking to do. So if he's in bot side farming, obviously you have the location of him. But if he's not seen on any of the wards and the camps are up, then it means he's in his top side jungle, either clearing his camps or already completed the camps and looking for a gank in the top or mid side. So that allows the top and mid to play safe because of the information of the jungle, and it lets bot lane play aggressive, knowing that jungler can't possibly do that.
Alrighty. So wave pushing. TSM forward. They have some vision down on this bottom side, and the junglers haven't really decided to get involved in this bottom lane. You've seen them hanging much more closer to mid lane, where there's been a lot of action. Svenskeren doing the same thing. But at what point does MLXG just want to start getting involved in this bottom side? He's not quite 6 yet. I'd imagine that's the place.
He doesn't really want to be bot lane yet, because the way RNG is actually playing is they're not looking to actually interact with the TSM bot lane. They've already recalled twice. Their whole goal is just to let the bot lanes build up, and basically how you do that is letting the wave either stack up on your side or stack up on their side, because whenever there's the sort of imbalance from where the creeps meet, so if, let's say the creeps meet in the middle of the lane, it'll be very even and the creeps won't build up. But when it's uneven and it's on one person's side, eventually it'll stack up. And when it is stacked up, all you have to do is just play passive when it's not on your side, and when it's on your side, you slowly build it up and then you play aggressive.
It's just a combination of backs and force at the moment. It's like similar to what you see in top lane, but bottom lanes right now are consciously doing the exact same thing. Freezes, pushes, and recalls whenever it's pushed into the turret so that it resets.
Yeah, the way you can kind of think about it is like the tides of a wave. Like right now, the tide is building up on RNG's side, and it'll crash into the tower, and after it crashes into the tower, it'll slowly build up and back into RNG's favor.
Like a wave on the sand.
And
yeah, so the ways on how to avoid bad matchups is exactly how RNG is playing. They play to build up waves or let them build up waves, and as long as they're not taking trades to be dived, then it's perfectly safe to allow the enemies to build up big waves just to let it crash, and vice versa. When you build up a big wave, even if you're in the weaker lane, or maybe even like a lane that you can get all-in on, as long as you have more creeps, then you're perfectly fine.
Uh-oh. Oh! Not gonna Biofrost.
He has Ignite. They choose not to use it.
Yeah, he does have some sustain, so he's going to be able to get back up. Healthy enough in no time. And Uzi has really been using those spell shields kind of at the drop of a hat. It's a little dangerous if, you know, Doublelift, just like that time, didn't take the bait to try for the Deadly Flourish.
I mean, it's dangerous, but it's also a Nami Jin lane where there's not too much of a threat that's going to outright kill you, especially when they already done a lot of the damage to Biofrost, who had to be quite respectful and back away. They would also have the pink ward they were on, so if they saw Svenskeren, they would have backed away appropriately.
Speaking of Svenskeren.
This just seems like a trade of jungles. They enter the bot side, and Hecarim's pretty happy just on the top side. Yeah. But to touch a little bit more on wave management, for the viewers at home, especially for the AD carries who maybe they get camped a little bit, maybe they get ganked a lot, like the solution on how to not get ganked is wave management and wave control. So just like RNG is doing right now, you can simulate in solo queue. If you let the wave build up to big waves, then that's the safest way, because you're very not susceptible to ganks if you're playing it correctly, and yeah, it's just a way to maybe not optimize your farm. You'll probably miss some CS while the wave is building up or it's building away from you. But you'll be very safe. You'll be able to get to your back without dying and take pretty much only smart trades and be safe throughout the entire laning phase.
That's the key to it, right? You're effectively just getting safe recalls in every single time, and you're negating a lane that might actually even beat you. So as you said, if you're playing those solo queue games, you find an opportunity to let them push into you. You might miss 2 or 3 CS. You build a wave up to the point where if they fight you, you win. They won't fight you. You then push, then reset and recall yourself. It's all about avoiding these really bad situations where you don't want to fight. And it was a clever thing that I think Uzi and Marta, I think it's safe to say, actually put into effect in a lane where they'd lose the 2v2 from poke.
Yep.
As a result, the junglers have to look for action elsewhere. Svenskeren killed MLXG up top, way back by his inhibitor turret. And by the way, guys, just for those of you at home still looking to have your burning questions about that bot lane answered as Mata goes in deep for just a second, you can always hit us up at LOL Esports. Hashtag #AskTheCasters. You can read those ones out in the game, asking about wave management or whatever. Doublelift really wants this.
I thought the combo was a little ambitious, but Doublelift instantly flashed.
Double TP on the hunt. Okay, now they're getting involved. There's the curtain call. In comes MLXG. I don't know if they want to take this. Mata's tanking the face of it and has to flash behind MLXG. And finally, they're out of range. So 4v4 in this bottom lane, and it nearly turned into a 5-on-5 as the mid laners kind of walked in at the end of it all.
Yeah, almost all the resources was used to fight. And
wait a minute.
Oh, just now the fight's starting.
Yeah, they caught Sven. Oh,
No.
whiff shockwave. Mata, though, if he had been a few pixels closer, that could have been a dead cow.
Yeah, Svenskeren pressed his R button as well. There was a chance that he followed it through and killed, but they took the safe option. And funnily enough, everyone walks away. Looper was the first to teleport in, so you expected a little bit more proactivity, but that actually just looked like poor communication from RNG around their bottom lane, which is weird because Marta's a shot caller.
Yeah, party in bot lane.
Yeah, and TSM didn't really go for anything out of that either. I mean, you'd think with some of the backs they might have been able to force an Ocean Drake at the very least.
Yeah, I guess with the amount of ultimates committed on both sides, it seemed really hard to actually commit yourself to the Dragon. Even though TSM is up so much vision, I do think going for maybe Dragon was the correct play, but they went on the safe side.
A lot of pings flying down there. And, you know, speaking of shot caller, Mata, he's usually the guy that's actually instigating all of those pings. So you ever want to peek into the mind of Mata? That seems to be always what his focus is on.
It's a tough thing to do, to peek into the mind of Mata. We also saw something in the last fight, I don't know if you noticed. Doublelift did not use his ultimate, he just pressed his R key and just held it. And everyone was kind of trying to juke and go nowhere. And it's that mind game of, am I going to throw it? Who am I going to throw it at? And how is this going to play out that can often scare people? Where like you don't throw a skill shot and you run at somebody, usually they'll just go in circles until you're next to them and can hit them anyway.
Oh, yeah, so I don't actually play that Jhin. I don't play Jhin often, but something I really hate from all the Jhin mains or just the AD carriers who play Jhin is how they waste their Jhin ult. Like,
Yeah.
I don't even play the champion, and I know all the time how badly some Jhins use their ult when the targets are full HP or they're missing the bullets because CC is about to be hit. So let's say an Elise is coming in for a gank, and the Jhin opens with an ult.
Yeah.
Elise has Cocoon. Like, you just have to wait and be patient with your shots. Or even just a slow, like let's say an Olaf without hard CC. He just gets the slow and it guarantees the Jhin shot into the chain of continuing the Jhin shots.
Well, on the subject of Jhin ultimates and trying to dodge him, Uzi's gone for a Boots of Swiftness upgrade. This is not something that I personally see a whole lot. You guys want to take me through why he might choose this?
Maybe it's a matchup thing because some Jhins do go for Swiftness boots. I don't really like the Swiftness boots, especially for how Berserker Greaves is, like how much attack speed it gives. I really don't like Swiftness boots.
I mean, especially you have a lot of defensive tools on Sivir, the spell shield on the hunt you can use to get away from things. I think the move speed is a little negligible.
Like, I can talk towards the utility that a Sivir has as to why Boots of Swiftness might be good, but I generally just disagree with it also. I think that, like, the added move speed could be useful. They're a composition that is very heavily aided towards move speed, being a Hecarim Alistar. They want to be on top of people as soon as they can. But honestly, the Sivir just presses R and should run in the opposite direction. And I don't know if the Boots of Swiftness necessarily do anything for him.
Let's say for arguing for the case of Swiftness, against Nami, since its auto attack slows, the Swiftness passive is actually pretty beneficial against that. I'd say with ultimate pops, her move speed wouldn't actually go down that much if she was getting slowed by Nami or Orianna.
Mata's going pretty hardcore in here, and Uzi does get a nice boomerang blade bounce, but again, you need to be able to execute it. It seems so hard because Biofrost can just heal it up, and there you go. You've got on the hunt, instant exhaust, and the curtain call shots. Now Mata's got to tank the rest of it.
It seems like RNG is starting to have a worse and worse time. And once again, the Hecarim not able to have an impact in this lane of farm jungler. And so that's actually starting to unveil quite poorly with RNG 2v2.
So where do you think this started to really go downhill for RNG? Because they had such a great start at shutting down Svenskeren, but you know, of course, all the action happened up topside where we were focused down here. You know, what really has been going right for TSM and wrong for RNG?
Well, it really stemmed from that kill. There was actually a gank in top lane where Rumble died. And it seemed like, yeah, just across the map, RNG's been losing on all sides.
All
so.
summoners are up here just for the record. They are about to find each other.
Oh, right for Doublelift. Oh, that's like really good laser focus there. Uzi and Mata, they just outplay TSM's bot lane.
Yeah, I guess TSM was looking for maybe some sort of a cheese, but
Yeah.
Uzi was well away from the brush. Even if Uzi did face check, he had, I'd say, the reaction time to just spell shield any sort of bubble or a CC. So really surprising for TSM to make that decision to sit in that brush.
Yeah, I agree. That was actually quite surprising. It did feel a little bit cheesy, and this opens up so much for RNG. I'm very surprised that they were even looking for something like that. Almost reckless and not necessary, ultimately.
Yeah, it seems kind of odd because the time before when Doublelift had flashed last, he flashed the combo because he wanted to win the trade. But there, he was looking to trade, but then he didn't flash the combo. Like, if he used the same technique he just used, he would have been able to flash out.
So my sneaking suspicion here is that he was expecting them to go on Biofrost. They were separated from each other, but as you said, Pyro, the laser focus and the ignite being available.
I mean, to be honest, TSM could have won that. If Doublelift flashed the combo, then even if Uzi does spell shield the bubble, Doublelift would be in prime position to win the 2-2.
So how big is that right now for RNG? We talked about losing lanes and you know how things have been kind of getting out of control for them. They're still in a gold deficit, but they pick up their first tower. They get themselves some kills and they're going in again. How big is that for them?
Well, catching up in gold is obviously super important, especially for a team fight composition. So I'd say for both comps, they're definitely looking for the 5v5 team fights, and whichever team is in the gold deficit will obviously have the disadvantage. So the moment RNG picks up in their items, picks up in their team fight strength, then they'll be able to control objectives very well. And it's basically for 5v5 team comps, whoever has the most amount of gold or just power will actually be able to control the objectives.
Yeah, they can also lay down that red carpet. So RNG able to press the Sivir ultimate at any time and go forwards and aggressive. I think you're right. Whoever has the gold advantage will start to press forwards, and this is actually a really good opportunity to highlight how Doublelift's about to start to play this lane out because the turret is gone. It's really unsafe for him to stay here past the point where he pushes it out if he doesn't know where RNG are. So you can see he pushes the wave, Biofrost comes down, and they immediately try and make sure the area is safe before they advance forward any further.
Yeah, right
got
now,
a lot of friends.
TSM's playing pretty aggressive because they have a good idea that Hecarim's in the top side.
I mean, it's a full team effort right now to ensure that bottom was safe because they're actively making that conscious decision that the whole team wants to get this turret.
Yeah, and just the knowledge of having a ward on the red, knowing that Hecarim's top side, gives TSM the ability to just walk in and take a free bot tower.
So nicely played for them. Concerns if the Jhin wasn't going to be quite in position, wouldn't be able to do it, so he takes the last shot, and now things even out in that bottom side. You know, the game is still TSM's gold lead right now, and they still have a lot of map control and a lot of vision on that bottom side, but RNG have shown that they definitely can really bring the heat, and that's, you know, that's still troubling if you're TSM.
Yeah, they've shown the 2v2 is still definitely going off for RNG, and that was with the Alistar pick as well, so putting in a decent amount of work at this stage.
He's tanking things up as well.
Yeah, as you can see, Blue Buff's about to spawn. It's very close to spawning, and it looks like both teams are actually very hesitant about entering the Blue Buff side jungle. Yeah, Looper's looking at TP, start up this team fight.
Okay, Doublelift, Biofrost, Bjergsen, they're all here along with Svenskeren, and Mata just
very
gets
good.
2-man
Doublelift.
knockup, and there's a big equalizer, but Doublelift just melted through it. Biofrost gone down too. These are some squishy targets on TSM, and Hanser just arrives a little too late, but he
Uzi's
takes down
dead.
Uzi. All right, so much for the bot lane stream. Everyone's dead.
That's a bit awkward that we're highlighting the two people that are being, you know, absolutely focused.
Well, Mata's still alive. It's cool. He's the real hero.
I mean, that really
Even though
just comes
Shahu got a
down
triple
to,
kill.
like, whoever pulled the trigger first. It was really clear both teams were trying to contest the blue buff. They were both very hesitant, but RNG luckily just pulled the trigger first and they won.
Yep, no hesitation. This is the team we talk about being, you know, some of the most mechanically skilled players in the entire tournament, and even historically. But it's always about coming together as a team. They clearly did there.
They definitely did. They've even forced a Hex Drinker purchase out of Doublelift. Not feeling too confident. Of course, Hex Drinker and more of Malmortius reasonably standard for the Jhin. But that's an immediate defensive decision. Unfortunately for him, MLXG doesn't do all that much magic damage.
Yeah, for the last team fight, it's pretty hard to say whether any sort of positional, if we could have corrected the AD carry positions, the team fight would have went like any different. Pretty hard to play against a Hecarim Rumble as Jhin, and just as hard to play against an Orianna Cannon as Sivir.
And that certainly can be a little bit rough. So you start to see other factors in this game kind of emerge that can affect it. Shahu getting so far ahead now on this Cassiopeia. You know, how does this affect TSM's decision making? Because this Jhin is not super mobile if he gets caught out by Shahu or by MLXG.
Yeah, so for competitive play, to be honest, the sort of mistakes AD carries make, a lot of it comes from team mistakes. So when AD carries are lacking CS, you can tell that the team has bad macro because they're not sending the AD carry to the right lane to farm. And just like for team fights, even though the Jhin has no mobility, the way they're setting up the team fights is inherently wrong. So whoever's trying to set up the team fight, whoever's trying to set up plays is doing it poorly because AD carry is in a bad position. They're getting engaged on, and those are things that need to be factored before anyone even goes to the objective.
Yeah, and the AD carries in this game are going to be a big focal point of the opposition teams. A Cannon and a Rumble, an Alistar even and a Hecarim want to take out Doublelift, and there is a plenty of champions that actually want to take out Uzi themselves. So whilst their positioning may be in question, maybe the team's macro is in question, I feel like it's also right now a conscious decision for both of these teams that they just want to kill the opposite AD carry and hope that they can do it faster and more efficiently.
Yeah, I mean, it just really comes down to the AD carries. It's not really their fault they died. It's how the team fight's set up. And for the people at home who are playing solo queue, obviously you're not on communication with the rest of your teammates. You're not setting up any sort of objectives. So the way you need to be positioning as a AD carry is factoring in the things like the team fight setup, who's looking to engage on you, and pretty much distancing yourself relative to how much damage you can deal in a team fight.
As an example, in this game, right, you're Doublelift and you're against an Alistar. You know that he's going to headbutt Pulverize combo you, and if his flash is available and yours isn't, you actually have to position a little bit more back just because he can get you more easily than you can get out.
Yeah, I mean, for the micro things we can talk about, whenever you're against a support champion, it's really important to know their flash time, especially for Alistar. It can go for really any support champion. You have to really respect their flash ranges, and that's something that comes over time, just knowing how to distance yourself.
But we see that, also still painting Doublelift in some of these engages, and the rest of TSM Mata, obviously, one of the brighter minds in the game is definitely going to be aware of all those distances and aware of where and when they can't go in, and even the pros still make those mistakes. So don't feel too bad, guys at home, if that still gets you completely killed multiple times. You just want to try to learn from it.
Yep. I mean, it's still kind of hard because he was getting flanked, so...
Yeah, that's true.
Pretty hard.
Not a lot you can do, and there's no directions left to go. Let's check back in on Twitter, too, speaking of matchups, because at Nevex on Twitter asks, for bad matchups, would managing the wave to freeze in front of your tower be good, or would they just kind of poke you out?
Freezing in front of your tower is very good. That's exactly how you're supposed to play bad matchups. Whenever you freeze... actually, I'll just talk about it after this.
There's nothing freezing about that. Woo!
Please continue the point.
Yes, now that Bjergsen's dead.
Yeah, but I'll touch on freezing your lane. Well, it's not really freezing if it's in a if both bot lanes are in the lane. It's not really freezing. It's more about holding. So the right term would be holding the lane when you're in a bad matchup. And yeah, that's exactly how you play bad matchups. Mata's
You learn. And Mata does fall over. Curtain call comes up
Bit of
pretty
an
big there.
overreaction.
So, you know, altogether, that's a 1-for-1 on the map, but, you know, it did take quite a lot to shred through Mata. He's getting fairly tanky.
Yeah, so to finish the question, yeah, holding the wave right in front of your turret is the best way, because over the next trades, like if they go for a really aggressive trades and they don't have vision, then they're obviously the easiest possible gank you can do. And when the turret is once the creep wave meets in front of the turret, over time it'll build up the creeps into the enemy, and when you have a built-up creep wave, that can lead to you taking aggressive trades to be able to dive them, or taking aggressive trades to go for a kill.
Yeah, I guess the other side to that question as well is, will you get poked out when you're doing it? That looks firstly at the champions you're against. When Ezreal will poke you out, and Ashe is also very good at doing the same things. And it also, you have to remember how many minions there are crashing onto that turret, because if there's too many, you'll have a really bad time trying to actually hold it there or freeze it.
If they're a high poke lane, then it's still it's worth noting that it can be worth getting poked to keep the wave in your control. So if you're keeping it in front of the turret, then it's keeping it in your control. And you kind of just have to, with experience, you'll know how much HP it's worth losing to keep control of the wave. And yeah, trading HP can be worth keeping the wave on your side.
Fair enough. Just actually, I wanted to touch on this one because it's something that I always have an interest in when I play on the bottom side. What do you do if you have a champion that kind of auto pushes, like say Tristana with the E? Like how does that actually like kind of change that when you're trying to hold things?
Oh yeah, so for Tristana is actually the only AD carry besides like after you buy Runeans, you can't actually wave control. So unfortunately for
I'm
you
just
Tristana
out of luck
mains,
is what you're telling me.
Yeah, it's not possible.
So don't play Trist if
or
you want to
just not unlock
win.
E. I mean, if you don't unlock your E, you can probably wave control.
There
Yeah,
are
that's
people
one way to
that
do
that, yeah. It just means you can't trade because you're obviously missing a big part of your damage.
Yeah, I don't suggest that. If you're playing Tristana, yeah, you kind of just have to throw out the subtle wave controlling, but I mean, Tristana's actually a really good laner. She's really good at all-inning, so she doesn't really have to rely on the wave control as much as a champion like Jinx or Sivir would have to.
And Jinx also works the same token. You just never want to actually turn your rockets on in that kind of situation. But, you know, back out of the hypothetical matchups and back into this game, we've hit, you know, about 27 minutes into it, and you can see the mid laners, or the AD carries are becoming mid laners now because they're roving around with these teams. And, you know, team fight, obviously, like RNG can still set up fights really fast, but do TSM really need to change their approach in the way they've actually been starting these fights? Because they seem to be coming out ahead so far.
I mean, looking back at the initial fight that we had, like the big team fight where Rumble TP'd in behind, it seems like TSM wasn't really sure of all the options that RNG is thinking about, because they clearly didn't think about, okay, Rumble might have a flank war, they might just TP in and engage on us. So they really have to be crisp on how they set up for any sort of objectives, because they have all immobile champions, and if they get CC'd on, then they're instantly going to lose the team fight.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to look towards here from TSM. Their engage tools as you hit mid and late game are actually starting to be a little bit more lacking, which is why I like the Jhin change up here from the Ezreal. It means that it gives them something more, and they don't really have a hard commit engage besides a cannon if the flank's there, or at least in combo, or barring some miracle shockwave, which is why I think the Jhin pick here from Doublelift is really useful. A bit of damage connects, a cannon Q or a Nami W, they're locked down, then TSM can engage. And I think that's how they should be actually playing these fights out if they're looking to go forwards. The problem is RNG are always going forwards on them at the moment.
Does seem to suit their style.
Which, yeah, makes a lot of sense.
And I guess you can kind of count on that if you're looking at a composition like RNG are building. But, you know, you have this pretty big elephant in the room. It's the Cassiopeia that's 5-1 right now. How are TSM going to deal with that? I guess we'll find out
They
after
also
this
have a
fight.
big horse and a cow running at them.
There's a pretty much an entire farm
Oh
going
my god,
on
they're
right
an animal farm.
Oh, and that's taken by MLXG.
I guess similar to a Lee Sin combo, Hecarim does do a lot of burst.
So to talk about this, what's it called, the start to the fight, or basically the setup, TSM actually played that horribly wrong, because they gave up mid position and they gave up left side of the dragon position. So basically how you want to position in the team fight is making sure you get full mid lane control, so you push up the wave, you get the vision control from mid lane to dragon, and then you keep control of both the chokes and make sure RNG cannot enter. But it ended up happening that TSM was basically too scared and ran all the way to south of the dragon, and it gave RNG the position to go for a steal. and just walk away.
Now you are seeing Doublelift lose a lot of his health bar there, but that was actually just a really strong macro movement from TSM across the board to let Haunter get a turret. So don't be fooled when Looper just throws down the red carpet and tries to kill Doublelift. It was actually just a really good team play.
Yeah, overall it's definitely working the way they need to, and TSM definitely have been showing that, like, despite some minor mistakes in like how they're actually positioning and allowing RNG to come up with some things, like they are moving around the map pretty solidly, and Doublelift is doing exactly what he needs to. He's just sitting behind. They just can't afford to get flanked, it seems. But I guess that's fairly obvious when you're playing.
Well,
So for TSM, like they're never going to be pushing up the mid lane and hitting the tier 2 tower. That's not an option for TSM. If they get flanked on by anyone like Alistar, even just Rumble ult, they'll just immediately fall flat. They have to be in a position where RNG walks towards them and they're in a very easy position. Otherwise, Doublelift is going to get screwed over.
Toast, yeah. I guess one other small detail, looking towards the Baron now is the major objective that both of these teams will be looking towards. There's a good opportunity to set up all of the traps of the Jhin before a fight breaks out, as they really wanted at RNG. And the reason for setting up those traps is the slow that it actually gives is quite useful when you look at who he's playing against. So Civil will press the ultimate, speed up Marta, who wants to run at you really fast to hit the combo, but the trap can deter that. The same thing applies for the Hecarim. So there's a surprisingly high amount of use behind using the E from Doublelift.
So some advice I can give for the solo queue AD carry players. So I've been talking about how these teams are setting up fairly well. I mean, RNG is setting up very well for these objectives, but TSM isn't. And for solo queue, since you're not really setting up anything, you really have to think for yourself on AD carry, because if you let yourself get into a bad position, like even if you were Doublelift, if you put yourself in a bad position, you'll always die, no matter how you play it. So just as it's important to be really skilled mechanically, like in the micro, it's just as important to be skilled in the macro and not put yourself in dangerous positions. Like if you're in this position, Doublelift is in danger of just getting ulted or flanked on. Like Mada's going for a pretty deep flank if he does decide to go in, but they got chunked out, so they're not going to look at the fight.
I think a really cool mentality decision that a lot of people make, a lot of pros actually make even in solo queues. You have to remember that every single champion on League of Legends does the exact thing that they're supposed to do. Just because Bjergsen's on the champion doesn't mean his Q does 70 more damage. Just means that he's really good at playing that.
This is what I meant. So.
There's your flank. Yeah, and they just run right onto Doublelift, and MLXG finishes him off. Didn't even have to ult it, and
they just blasted them.
A huge chunk of their damage is gone, and now Xiaohu's gone in, Hans's gone golden, but he's going down. There's no way you survive that. And Uzi picks up another kill for his trouble.
It doesn't matter who you are in the world. If you were a bronze 5 AD carry player or Doublelift, you're going to die in that scenario 10 times out of 10.
The exact point being made, right? So that was really strong stuff here from RNG's flank. And Doublelift, you have to say, like, he's having a bad game, but it's not him having the bad game.
I mean, yeah, it really just comes from TSM's macro. They really faltered in their first fight where they really didn't pull the trigger for the blue buff fight, and then it led into giving RNG a bunch of advantages. And as you saw there, that was a really horrible comp-based issue where they let themselves get flanked when they have no options against getting flanked.
There's so much vision, like, to enable this setup. Like, you look at where Mada's going here, and this is just like
really good for Mada though.
Yeah.
Like, because he holds the pulverize.
The Rumble, Alistar combo is brutal for any backline.
Yeah, Doublelift is run over before Hanser can even arrive. So that, I mean, that just worked out so well for them here, and you know, it kind of makes you wonder. Obviously, like in that particular situation, your positioning is super important on a less mobile champion like Jhin. If this was the Ezreal, would that have happened?
I'd say there was room for outplay for a mobile carry, but if it was Mada, I wouldn't really give much of an edge.
The Mada factor's pretty big.
Yeah, that's the big thing, right? You can still see pink wards on the minimap as Haunts is dying. Those 2 pink wards is what set up Mada to be as aggressive as he was and get that flank.
But yeah, a lot of the struggles for the, I mean, just for a Doublelift, a lot of the struggles just stems from, not from his positional errors, but yeah, just from the team-based decision to go for whatever scenario, like as you saw there, going for a tier 2 kind of siege, just let themselves get just opened on.
Yeah. And you know, using On the Hunt very liberally, they can just use it to kind of close those distances on rotations even. Uzi's definitely been doing his job on that flip side.
So do you think there's a better champion, Matt, besides Nami in situations like this? I know that RNG have an engage comp on him and it was early drafted, but would you say like Braum as an example
Yeah, at this point, Nami's really bad at scaling. She's not a good scaling support whatsoever. Any support would be better than Nami right now.
That's
The way you just draft Nami is for the laning dominance, and as you saw, RNG played around the lane dominance just by not even being in lane. They
Wave
recalled-
manipulation won them the lane, essentially, right?
Yeah, they
Don't lane
recalled
if you don't have
after
to.
controlling the wave.
Yeah.
Several ways to do that, and this is, of course, going to be RNG's Dragon, no problem. They control so much of this map, and you can just see all the pink wards. Every time they claim their territory, they throw down a pink flag.
Oh, I think
Doublelift's about to...
Uh-oh. Oh, boy. That
I mean,
stings.
that was a positional error. I'll give him that. That was definitely a positional
That's
error.
Your dead doesn't matter what you take
That was
there.
not
okay.
Bjergsen's or Biofrost or Sven's fault. That was Doublelift's fault.
Oh, okay, so Doublelift's officially having a bad time.
It tarnishes the record, I will say. Yeah, absolutely having a rough day, but Uzi also putting in a lot of work. Between him and Mata,
Yeah.
you can see how RNG win on a League of Legends game.
Mata's looking really good on this Alistar. Like, he has set up so many big plays. And a lot of them you can kind of see it coming, but TSM have allowed it.
Oh yeah, I love Mata on Alistar. I actually look up to
good
him just for his Alistar play. I mean, he's obviously, I'd consider the best support in the world. Maybe not currently, but for the past
his
year,
prime.
especially in his prime, he's been the best support player. And for Alistar, the way he flash combos, the way he really plays when his flash is up is something I try to mimic. And it's not revolutionary, but it's very, yeah, I think it's very legendary.
Good example.
Yep. And it just runs around the other side, and Bjergsen is going down. Uzi claiming another kill here. And they don't even need to finish off the teleport. Looper's just going to cancel and keep on pushing as they march down the line. And you talked about how good Mata looked on this Alistar, and obviously, like, the players definitely have their own individual reputation as FLICKR goes in, and Xiaohu might actually get chunked out here. Hanser and FLICKR were able to get quite a lot done, but you can see Uzi's damage is ridiculous. MLXG chases Hanser out of his own base with the fear. Mata flashes. That's bold. Okay, he's on to Doublelift. And that's a triple kill for the Sivir. I mean, he just goes huge.
I mean, at this stage, it looks like it's going to be potentially the game. It should actually be only 18 on Bjergsen. And once again, big plays from Uzi and Mata, the bottom lane of RNG stepping up massive.
Yeah, I really like the resource allocation because, as you can see, the mid lane is at a 100 CS deficit, but for the AD carry, it's nearly an 80 CS deficit. So
Yeah, that's huge.
it really shows how much care they put into Uzi.
Biofrost used to splash. It's not very effective, and the Nexus is going down. So RNG managed to finish that one off after all, and oh man, Uzi really started claiming a lot of those kills towards the end.
He's a passionate player. You can see the excitement on his face. They just beat NA's #1 seed, right? And it was on the back of the bottom lane performance. And this is one of the bottom lanes you expect to show up at Worlds. Didn't know, but they did.
Yeah, I mean, there were some question marks. You talked about we talked about teams that might have suffered in the summer, and RNG, the last performance we saw from them was that 0-3. They got swept aside by ADG, but this looks like a different team. They are a little bit more revitalized there, and Uzi and Mata had a banner game.
Yeah, an impressive performance across the board. It's funny, even with a remade draft, right, Matt, they still actually adapted their play style and made it work for them.
Yeah, who needs an Aurelion Soul?
Yeah, I think RNG really stepped up.
That was
I really
big for
like
them.
as I said before, the resource allocation. Uzi gets a monster amount of farm.
Yeah.
And he's shown he can really use that.
Yeah, I mean, he just does so much. Yes, he eats a lot of resources, but I mean, there's a reason you feed the puppy, because he turns into a real mean damage dishing machine. So
yeah,
Uzi goes big, but Mata every bit behind him, setting up those kills, setting up the roams, the vision, just utterly dominating and lighting up the TSM side of the map, and that's how they do it.
Yeah, again, I think a lot of this comes back to what happened in the early stages of the game, because the bottom lane of RNG did so much work. The early recall, the early pink wards, and even the early boots from Mata letting him roam around the map and have a massive impact to get those first kills were really determining factors, where Uzi comes in, and it wasn't always protect the puppy in the early game, but man, did he do a lot of work as it went on.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, a lot of it just came from how they played the bot lane, just not really what exactly they did, but the sort of mentality that they had.
Yeah.
Their mentality was, okay, we're not even going to be in the lane. We're just going to push in the lane, let it be pushed to us, and then just recall. And Mata got an early roam off because of that, and I think that really did snowball the game, especially for leading into getting control of bot side, getting control of those 3 pink wards.
Yeah.
Very important for how RNG's bot lane played out.
I think it's safe to say they knew their win conditions coming into it
Oh, yeah.
then, and they played around that, even picking the Sivir to aid in those win conditions. Really hard to dive that champion as an example. So from the get-go, it was very well refined from them.
Oh, they absolutely were able to rock it, and every aspect of it that was driven from the bot lane, even if they weren't in the bot lane a lot of the time, or the action wasn't in the bot lane. They moved Mata up towards the jungle. They shut down Svenskeren. Then when they did, re-enter, and the mind games to kind of go in on Doublelift when Biofrost was literally right in front of Mata. I mean, it's those little things. That's what makes a team, separates the good teams from the great sometimes.
Yeah.
You can have somebody that can do that.
I think the point I'd like to reiterate is the mistakes between having sort of a bad macro like team decision and the AD carry's mistakes. So really quickly I can go over the mistakes that Doublelift had. Obviously the brush 2v2 where he got comboed on. Even just the time before, I don't think the flash that he did was necessarily that bad earlier on when he just flashed the combo to get a better trade. But it really didn't make sense for the next time for his flash to be available that he didn't do the same sort of thing, because he actually would have won the trade if he just flashed the Alistar combo, which is something that I've seen a lot of AD carries do. Because as Alistar, as a champion, if you miss your combo, and obviously not really missing if he flashes out of it, but if you do miss the combo, it's you're just a useless champion. You can't even do anything.
Yeah.
So really interesting from that point. Also, the other point was the red buff. He kind of gets picked off. Getting picked off and while you're the AD carry is actually huge for the team.
Yeah.
It pretty much just shuts down the game for your team for, I'd say, like a minute until you respawn and you're back on the map.
And that pretty much was the gameplay, right? Like dying
Yeah.
at the red buff, they went bottom and they snowballed the whole game from that. I do think I agree with you on that. The one play they made bottom lane, which was a really big momentum booster for RNG, was Doublelift not actually flashing that combo. I think it was one mistake, but how much that meant was ridiculous.
Oh yeah, I mean, one mistake on AD carry means the game for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's just what happens. Sometimes you let those little things turn into big mistakes, and it just piles on, and you can't really take it anymore. But with that, that's going to do it for us today, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be back tomorrow, where our first game of the day will feature FLICKR versus Jensen. You aren't going to want to miss that. Taking a look at some of the matchups we're going to have of tomorrow. I can't wait.
That is a crazy one to highlight first, right? Jensen, a lot of hype behind him against FLICKR, the man who he really wants to beat.
Well, I think he's pretty much always the mid laner to beat for a lot of people, but we're going to go ahead and toss it back over to the analyst desk to wrap up the day. For myself, Rusty, Matt, our entire broadcast crew, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
믿고 같이 게임 해가지고 저희가 이길 수 있었던 것 같아요.
Because it was our first game of the tournament, we were really worried and pressured, and also the remake also. I thought that it would have some kind of negative influence on us, but I'm glad our teammates were able to group together once more, and I'm also glad that we were able to win.
A fantastic start to Worlds for RNG. You guys didn't have the best summer split in the LPL. Rocky, not a lot of people know what to expect from you guys as a team, so can you tell us what are your expectations with RNG this World?
RNG 팀이 이번 LPL 이제 썸머 시즌에는 다소 이제 좀 불안한 경기력을 보이면서 많은 팬들이 RNG 팀으로부터 이번 대회 성적을 좀 이제 예상하기 되게 어려웠었는데 지금 RNG 팀 내부적으로 이번 대회에 대해 거는 기대가 어떻게 되는지 말씀해 주세요.
사실 뭐 크게 기대는 하지 않지만 그래도 저희가 경기를 많이 하다 보면은 자신감도 많이 찾고 충분히 좋은 성적 낼 수 있을 거라 생각이 들어요.
Honestly, we don't have our hopes too high, but I think as we play more games and as we progress, I think our team can get better and our players can also improve. So I think we can have a bit more hopes as the tournament progresses.
Okay, well, of course, there's a lot of history in that lane. You, of course, the winner in 2014 playing against Uzi. Then how much will you guys be able to do as a duo here at Worlds?
지금 같이 바텀 듀오를 서고 있는 우지 선수는 이제 2014년에 마타 선수가 롤드컵을 우승했을 때 상대편으로서 이제 같이 있던 선수인데 같이 이제 바텀 듀오를 하면서 이제 어떤 시너지를 내고 있는지 말씀해 주세요.
일단 우지 선수가 라인전에 대해서 최고라고 생각하기 때문에 라인전에서 저도 배울 게 많아가지고 그거를 통해 가지고 저희가 팀 게임 할 때 아주 좋은 뭐라 해야 되지? 그러니까 협력 플레이를 같이 할 수 있는 것 같아요.
I think Uzi has the best laning phase as an ADC in the whole world, so I'm also personally learning a lot from him. And as playing as a duo, I think we're putting in a lot of synergy, good synergy to our team, not only limit to the lane phase, but also to the entire game management and team fight as a whole.
final question. There was a lot of hype surrounding TSM, of course, because we're playing here in North America as well. Do you still see them getting out of groups, and who are the two teams advancing?
그 이제 TSM 팀이 물론 여기가 이제 미국이라는 점도 있지만 많은 기대를 지금 모으고 있었습니다. 대회 이전까지. 지금 경기를 해보니까 TSM 팀이 8강 진출을 할 수 있을 것 같은지 아니면 좀 더 크게 8강에 이번 지금 죽음의 조라 불리는 D조에서 어느 두 팀이 8강에 진출할 것 같은지 말씀해 주세요.
일단 한 팀은 저희 팀이 올라갔으면 좋겠고요. 그리고 나머지 한 팀은 사실 모든 16팀이 경기력이 사실 그렇게 많이 차이 난다고 생각하지 않아요. 그래가지고 아마 마지막 날까지 가봐야 순위를 쉽게 알 수 있을 것 같아요.
Hopefully, our team will secure the first spot. And to be honest, I think that all 16 teams here contending at Worlds, the skill gap isn't as large as before. So I think all teams have a good chance to advance to the quarterfinals. So I think I'd have to see until the last day of the group stages to see which team will advance with us.
Yeah, of course, it was only the first game, but congratulations, Mata, on that victory. And he says that Jat was right all along, it seems. Let's go over to the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Shocks. RNG taking the final victory of day one. And gentlemen, I turn to you, and on behalf of all NA fans, say, damn you.
It's not a matter of if the gap is closing, it's how far you can jump.
What? What is that? I don't understand what that is.
Nailed it.
No. All right, but talk to me because all three of you
Dynamics,
predicted the TSM victory here going into this sixth game. And
I mean-
of course, that's not what happened. Although they did have a pretty dominant early game, especially FLICKR.
I mean, start of the day, Europe lets me down. 0-2 in predictions. I turn to the crowd, they're wrong, and they start leaving.
Yeah, look, they've
I feel like-
they've all evacuated.
I feel this is my childhood all over again. Everybody keeps leaving me.
Well, Papa's right here.
I'm right here next to you. Look, we all predicted TSM to take it down, but as Jat was saying, this wasn't a 80-20. This wasn't a 70-30. This was a where's RNG at? And the answer was, as you know, especially the LPL caster on the desk, Spawn, was saying, controlled, smart, not over pursuing for fights. And this was just a different RNG. And suddenly, the texture of this Group D, the Group of Death, it's all up to play for.
And we'll get to see it in the replay, but I really like the moment where RNG was finally able to grab a hold onto the game by really, I think, reading onto what TSM's plan was. If you saw them from the regular season, you know that they're very predictable in how they invade. They will always contest pretty much every single buff, and we saw that in the beginning, contesting red, blue buff over and over and over, even picking up a kill on MLXG, greeting out for the blue buff, as Krepo had mentioned, but they were able to actually do it well and get a lot of kills out of that.
So now, before we get to that moment that you're talking about, I do want to take a second to recognize a player who individually played like a monster in FLICKR. On that Lee Sin, we saw with the remake, they opted to first pick it, and he went off on this champion.
I mean, just he understands what it means to hold your Q until the right time. In this exchange, he waited for Hecarim to go over the wall. In a later exchange, he'll wait to use his Q to get close enough so that the Orianna Pal can get on top of him and he can travel the wall there. Like, he's just so smart. The fact that here again, you know, he's like, should I path down? No, because then I endanger a 2-man ulti. So instead, he's going for the 1-man escape here into dash to dodge the Hecarim ulti. Not only does he drag Hecarim away from his teammate, the impending collapse here. This is the beauty. Holds Q, gets the ball on him, then follows after flash, and that combo.
Ooh. My favorite part is the fact that he walks up onto the brush. You recognize that Cassiopeia is looking to flash over, that she's looking to use the ultimate away, and you position yourself away from the Orianna so that either the ult hits one or the other, and she's basically doomed to die.
Yeah, it was absolutely fabulous play out of him, but as you mentioned, not enough. Because with this early game pressure, with the lead that was built in the top lane, and that 40 CS lead in the mid lane, RNG, they found their time to strike 19 minutes into the game around the Dragon Pit, 4 for 1 in favor.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. They're going for the blue buff invade, but Mara sees the opportunity right from the get-go, and just a beautiful chain of CC onto the Rumble ultimate. And TSM, instead of abandoning this situation, which is a clear 4v5, they keep going in and they try to take this fight, and it's not going to work out for them.
And this has always been RNG's forte. This team fighting, the decisiveness, just pull the trigger and go. The problem is that they had some issues in the setup before that. Like, when we say macro, we mean map movements, we mean objective setups, we don't mean when to fight. Because RNG, they're so decisive when it comes to team fighting. Like, and they can pull out leads or come back from like 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 gold deficits than they have in the past with genius team fighting. And here they just all pulled the trigger together. The TP came in. It was marvelous.
And we spent the whole EDG game kind of ragging on Mouse, right? Mouse wasn't an impressive performer. They're not the best top laner in his league either, but Looper is the best top laner in the LPL. Former world champion, but of course, he was very much the fifth member of an all-star team. When he first went over to China, Mato I'm talking about here, it was Dandy Mato putting down wards, pretty much the old story. Now he's back with Looper, and this duo always had excellent teleports. It was out of frame in that replay, but the teleport from Looper was just majestic, best teleport of the game by far, and that's what opened it up. And then the next replay we get into, then it's going to be all about.
Yeah, let's push us to that. 32 minutes in, this is just where it all ends for TSM, and everything's great for RNG.
Just
3-0.
Keep your eyes out on Mata again. This guy with Flash is just such an absolute monster, and as soon as the Sivir ulti comes in, that's when you know they're happening.
There's more to
surprise cow with
Watch the fact that we also get the grounded effect. So when the three-man pole on top of the equalizer, on top of the no ability to flash out, that was majestic.
Honestly,
layering.
it's play of dreams. You don't really think about these plays being able to be executed so well with the CC, with the layered abilities, that it's quite magical to watch these guys do it. I mean, I would have never dreamed of being able to pull something like this.
Yeah, and they make it seem easy because they're playing Sivir Alistar into Jhin Nami, and if you play that matchup, I think in an even skill bot lane, Jhin Nami will smash that to pieces. You have one kind of shell in your shotgun that you have to use, which is usually the flash in lane, but Mata, he used this flash outside of lane, came back, and they still won. They completely outclassed Bifrost and Doublelift.
I mean, the language you used to describe what this 2v2 lane was, the moment Alistar, remember, Alistar was the last pick into a terrible 2v2 lane phase. Not broadcast appropriate, what Prepo said. Regardless, they took the gamble, just like we've seen other players take the gamble of champions that leave lane, like the Poppy from Darshan that paid off there. The Alistar was for outside of lane. He wanted to make the plays, and he made those plays.
And just Mata's Alistar, like, he can't be stated enough. Everybody's like up about it, like on the internet, like in Twitter and stuff, and saying like how great it is, but it is like it is truly.
How great is
It's
it?
greater
How
than,
great is
greater than that.
I can't swear because they'll fire me, but like it's effing fantastic. It's just like he understands the right moment to go for an aggressive combo where anybody else would hesitate fraction of a second, and that would lead to somebody escaping. Maybe he gets flashed. Like, he is so aware of game-changing plays, and he not only does that once, twice, thrice, he does that like 5 times in his game alone.
And the implication for the future match is insane because these guys picked one of the worst lanes into this and were able to perform so amazingly. Like, what do you do against this? What are they going to do with Nami?
I got to jump in here, guys, because while we're talking about Mata, we might as well award him the player of the game before I let you continue talking about Mata. 1, 2, and 15 on the Alistar. 94.1% kill participation. I mean, it all started with him, with the Lee Sin flash blown. That early invade out of lane off the first back, capitalizing on the blown flashes in the mid lane.
They'll have to ban the Alistar because of the implication.
Of course.
But I mean, think about the risk-taking here. Last pick Alistar, not good in lane. He took Ignite against a cannon. It's almost always automatic exhaust. Thunder Cow is, of course, the way he goes, the more offensive choice. It's basically all-out offense, all-out playmaking, and all-out MVP.
And actually, that first blood was a pretty nice macro play from RNG itself. You saw Zhao, who he puts an aggressive pink ward, then puts a green ward into the Raptor camp, and then immediately you see MLXG come in with Mata, and they recognize that Svenskeren used the safeguard on himself. Nice and easy setup, and that's really intelligent play to set your laner, set somebody else up with your own vision, and it's hard to predict that from TSM's side.
Well, NA's sweethearts in TSM suffer a defeat at the hands of RNG here on day 1. And with our first day of Worlds 2016 completed, let's take a look at how each group stands. Now, CLG and ROX are tied atop Group A. AHQ and INTZ share first place in Group C. And in Group D, Samsung Galaxy and Royal Never Give Up lead the way. Group B plays their first games of the tournament tomorrow. And that's scheduled for tomorrow. The action continues for 6 more group stage matches, kicking off at 4 p.m. Pacific, 8 a.m. Korea Standard Time. First up, see the defending champs in action for the first time at Worlds 2016 as SK Telecom T1 takes on Cloud9. Then LMS's champs, Flash Wolves, face China's IMA. So, gentlemen, that's just the first 2 of the 6 matches, but I turn to you. What perhaps is the match of the 6 that you're most looking forward to tomorrow?
And we're starting the day with a showstopper. This is SKT versus C9. This is SKT Impact now. C9 Impact taking on his old team, world champions on both sides. this is one that sells itself. Super hype.
It's going to be a fantastic cast, too, I've been told.
Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah?
Who's
Why
on
is
it?
that?
Wait,
huh?
who's-
Papa Smithy's on there.
That's true. That's
Oh,
true.
all right. Okay, well, then
At
I'll
least
give
they
it to
got
you.
Papa Smithy.
All right, well, yeah.
Somebody's got to carry Krepo.
Oh, that was such a downer way to end the note. Tell me something happy, Crumbs.
NA won more than you?
There it is. All right, well, be sure to stick around after the show for a look at all the day's action as Riv sits down with Jat and Officio in an all-new Worlds tonight. That's going to do it for us, though. So on behalf of myself, the casters, and everyone here in San Francisco, thank you for joining us on opening day of the 2016 World Championships, and we'll see you back here tomorrow as the competition continues.
16 teams stand poised to try and raise the Summoners Cup from defending champions SK Telecom T1. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together one more time for every region, every team, and all the players here at Worlds.
We are now loading onto the Rift for Game 1 of the 2016 League of Legends World Championship. Trick spots him down to 100 HP, and Darshan gets sniped, and it's 2 kills for Counter Logic Gaming. Expect free engagement. What alive! There's the snipe! He's gonna take him down! 3, 2, 1, go. Let's go, boys! Good job, guys. One more attack will do it. Smurf gets himself the kill. Chased down by Peanut, and it's the last man standing. Rox's newest player, their jungler, Peanut. Kuro takes one of the other ones, and now Smurf will fall. It would have been a penta, but scumbag Kuro steals it away.
We're finally at Worlds, guys, so this is our time to show up.
Go for the jump off to the side, getting away from the axe, but it's going to be enough damage for Mountain. One more chop.
Mazda stop, no stop.
Mazda is done. Mazda is dead.
Nice.
That is an ace. That's going to be Baron and AHQ with a significant lead.
Flash for flash. Oh, Gano! Kobe's down. A new challenger appears. Kobe's looking for more. Flash away. Mickey saves Kobe. Flash forward, Sonic Wave, Dragon's Rage, Sven gets the kill! MLXG's not done, Mata finds Doublelift, and Uzi gets the triple kill! RNG destroy the hometown heroes!
Bom, moleque. Dá pra levar isso aqui. Vamos. Eu vou roubar o Drago. Eu tô pressionando aqui, eu tô pressionando aqui.
Micah's on 200 HP. One. Oh, no!